everyone. Welcome to our weekly stock pick. I see that some people are strolling in. Just say hi to us. Yeah, let us know that you can hear us loud and clear, and we are not like muted or something. All right. Hey,
Hello,
hi,
hello everyone.
hi, hi, Luke. Hi, Luke. Yeah, I saw that you are here. If you guys can hear us, just type in can, okay, or say hi to us. All right. Okay, anyway, so we are very happy to have you guys here with us on our weekly stock pick. Today together with me, we have the trade engineer who is going to give us the technical aspect of trading. So it's very exciting. On every Sunday, right, we talk about both investing and trading. All right. Hi Luke. Hi Luke. Thanks for replying to us. Yep, so I can share this video so that more people can benefit from this sharing session. Awesome. So while people are still strolling in, right, maybe let me talk about the market conduct first to see what is happening in the market right now at this particular point in time. Just pardon me if I'm sounding like a bit groggy because I'm actually not feeling very well in my gut. So so please pardon me for a bit, yeah. Give me some chance lah, not feeling very well, so I'm a bit rosy here. I have no idea why. But anyways, what happened last week, right? If you realize, right, is we saw a momentary drop in the stock on Friday itself. What exactly happened? You guys know what exactly happened to type in the chat. If you guys do not know what happened, let me share with you what exactly happened. So on Friday itself, right, the report came out to say that the consumer inflation has increased the fast has the highest annual rate increment since more than 40 years ago. Wow. Since more than 40 years ago, consumer inflation increased in the fastest rate, right? Not only that, consumer sentiment index actually fall to all-time low. What does it mean? People are fearful. People are not spending money, right? Consumer inflation increase, people spending power might not be as big, or what? Their sentiment index actually went down to all time low. That is very bad news. And also the 10-year treasury note increased and reached the highest rate since 2018. It's a lot of bad news on Friday itself. That's why we saw a big drop in the market on Friday, right? If I'm not wrong, Dow actually went down by 800 over points. But let us look at the market right now, yeah? Let us look at the market. Let me share my screen for a bit, or where is it? Yep. Okay, so let me share my screen here, right? I hope that you guys can see my screen. Okay, so this is actually S&P weekly chart. Yeah, I'm no longer looking at daily chart. I'm looking at weekly chart. Why? Because daily chart there will be a lot of volatility, and I just want to zoom out of all the noises. I make it a weekly chart. Okay, and the indicator I'm using, right, is 50 over 150 simple moving average. All right, so this chart should look very familiar because if you guys have been following me for the longest time, you always see me drawing this triangle. This part, there's a convergence, and here another convergence. The trend wise is actually a downward trend. You see lower lows and lower highs and lower lows. All right, so the trend now is a downward trend. If you put this in the daily time frame, you will see that the 150 simple moving average is higher than 50 simple moving average, which means to say it is currently bearish on a daily time frame. All right, on the weekly time frame is still positive, but this is if you are looking at very, very long term. All right, so nevertheless, look at this here. Currently on Friday, we saw a very large dip, though we thought that it might consolidate a bit more and break out, but it did not. It showed us a very bearish red bar on Friday, of which it is currently testing the support level. There are high chance for it to go downwards. All right, and you see all these black lines that I drew here. It's all possible support level should the stock continue to dip. All right, it's possible. Really attain, I have no idea. This is not a financial advice, but this is my personal point of view. All right, so you guys there, if you guys are with us, please do note that you need to do your own due diligence and execute a strategy that works for you. Always do your own due diligence. Why? Because we are always wrong. But this is just it, sharing purposes, for fun, for educational wise, for education consideration. That is all right. All right. So let's say, because on Friday is such a bearish bar, let's say should it dip to which point that we might see a possible reversal of trend. This one we do not know because nobody can predict the market. But nevertheless, let me draw, apart from the support line, let me draw Fibonacci for you guys to actually see what are the possibilities, right? So if I do draw here this possible uh, point in time, let me just draw here. Right, you see that there are a lot of possibilities, right? So currently we are actually about 1.2 thereabout. That is a very strong support based on Fibonacci extension, but it's a very red bar and there is no signal that it might have reversed. So there is actually a big chance that it might go further. How low? We do not know. Highly likely about 1.6 thereabout, or even lower. We do not know. But this is actually a very key critical point that you guys want to take a look, right? If I'm going to draw something more simplified for you guys, right, to actually take a look. Let me draw here. Sorry, not here. Particular point in time here. And then let me just draw here. Look at this. It's very exciting. Why? Because if I draw a very simple two-pointer Fibonacci lines, right, you will see that this resistance point, this support point is very fitly sitting at 1.6. All right. So with 1.6, if you don't see a green bar, you don't see a bullish signal, that means the market is currently not prepared to rebound at this particular point in time. It highly likely goes further. All right, so please embrace yourself to see where the market will go. Please be very, very safe out there, because why? The market is very volatile right now, and I want you guys to actually invest safely, trade safely. All right. Anybody has any question pertaining to the market? Do type in the chat. Do type in the chat so that we actually know and can help you and can support you further in this investment journey. Right, if you guys have any question. If otherwise, do type in the chat. Let us know what you want us, which particular company would you like us to actually share with you guys today. All right. I do saw that some people is actually asking for Amazon. Yeah, I saw, I think if I'm not wrong, it's Kevin asking for Amazon. But Amazon wise, we have actually covered it last week, last Sunday. So do actually refer to Amazon last Sunday. All right. Anybody who is online here has any questions or any stock that you would like us to evaluate for you guys? Do type in the chat. All right. Meanwhile, maybe the trade engineer can actually, we can have a chat with the trade engineer to see what is the trade engineer's viewpoint on the market and what would his actions be.
All right, right. Yes, thanks, Financial Missy. Yep. So since I think Financial Missy shared a bit on her view, right, of the overall US market, right, on the weekly chart, right. Maybe I also like to offer my take also on the on the overall US stock market, yeah, on the both the S&P 500 as well as the Dow Jones. Yep. So let me share my screen. But being a trader myself, I'm looking more at the short term, right? So I'll be sharing with you the daily chart, right? And what's my take on the daily chart. So let me first share my screen. And my com is a bit laggy. All right. Yep. Sorry, Financial Missy. You. Oh yes. All right. Great. Thanks. Okay. So so here's the daily chart for the Dow Jones index, right? So so you can see I've drawn a few lines down here and some indicators, right? So let me go through them one by one, right? So first of all, right, the I think very clearly you can see that, in recent times, it came down, stage, a small rebound up, right? And then you stayed, at this line, right? At this, basically this consolidation phase for a while, right? Before it actually dropped, and last Friday, what Financial Missy mentioned, it dropped quite a fair bit, right? It was about 800 points on this, on Friday, right? So over here, right, we can see some things that I think it's key to point out. Right, so first of all, we have this first resistance line. Right, it's very clear this is a resistance, right, because it has, it was testing this line previously many days, right, continuously in a row, right, and it couldn't push past this line. Eventually, it just fell back down. Right, so this is the resistance that you want to take note of, right, for those who are all more on the shorter term, right? And to see whether this would eventually break, right? If this eventually breaks through convincingly, right, there could be a more sustained rebound, right? But as a moment, this seems like the resistance, right? And it couldn't break past it. Eventually, the index actually fell. Right, so now as it's falling, right, it's approaching the first support level, right, the first horizontal support, right, which was tested in the past, right, on this day here, right, on the 12th of May, right? And today's the 12th of June, so it's about 1 month right after that. I can see that it is approaching this line right now, right? And so we should watch and see, right, what happens, next week when the markets open, right? To see whether this horizontal support can be convincingly supported. Right? If this horizontal support can be convincingly supported, right, it could stage a small rebound, right? But we do have to see whether it will be convincingly supported. Right? If not, it might test the next support level, which could be somewhere around this level, right? Which is what was the low, right? Sometime on the 20th of May, right? Somewhere about 30,600, right? Thereabouts. This first support level is about 31,200 to 31,100, somewhere thereabouts, right? And this first resistance level is about 33,200 to 33,300, right? So that's what I see here. And of course, you can see that I've joined this downtrend line as well, right? It's currently still trading below this downtrend line, right? So it is currently still in the downtrend, right? You want to see further upside, it has to break this downtrend line as well. Right, and as what we have mentioned previously in the past, the 50 SMA and 200-day SMA, right? You can see that this is this lighter line, right? Is the 200-day SMA, right? And this darker purple line, right, is the 50 SMA, right? So you can see the 50 SMA has actually dipped below the 200-day SMA, and it has been maintaining below that 200-day SMA, right? So that is still a sign of bearishness. And if this continues, right, there could be further bearishness in the mid to long term, right? Additionally, on the MACD wise, you can see that MACD, the bearish action the last 2 days, right? The MACD has actually crossed, right, into the negative region, right? It just crossed into the negative region, right? So that is there's also another sign of bearishness that more downside might persist, right? So we shall see, whether this will continue to be negative in the subsequent week, right? And that's for Dow Jones. If you see the S&P 500, right, S&P 500, it is telling a very similar story, right? The chart is very, very similar to the Dow Jones, right? You can see that it's the same thing, right? The price came down, staged a small rebound, hit this resistance line, and couldn't break past it and fell back down again. And now, it is some distance away from that first horizontal support level, right? So it's the same story, right? I didn't draw a downtrend line here, but it is also still trading below that downtrend line. I also didn't put in the 50-day SMA and 200-day SMA, but it is also telling the same story. Like the 50-day SMA is still below that 200-day SMA, and we shall, watch to see whether that gap actually increases, in the near future, right? And the MACD wise, right? MACD is also, you can see that there's crossover here, right? And it's, just reached into the negative region, right? So, in short, there could still be further downside, right? But at least, there is this first support here, right? So we should see this, right, as the key level to see whether what will happen when it hits this level, right? Will it break? If it breaks, it might fall down to test the next support level. But if it doesn't, right, it could stage a small rebound, right? So let's see what happens next in the market. But as what Financial Missy has mentioned, this is currently very volatile times, right? So do keep a close eye and do be mindful of your investments or trading, right, in this period of time. All right, and I think we have some stocks, right, sent by a few of by Kel and Luke.
Right. So the very first one is Berkshire Hathaway, by Cal. Ken, would you like to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Maybe you go first.
Sure, no problem. Okay, so guys, when you guys are here, I see that some of you are already in with us here on Sunday afternoon. I'm very happy to see you guys here. Of course, I'm back from Penang already. I'm back in Singapore already. That's why you see this familiar environment that I'm in right now. And definitely, we have our dear trade engineer here with us today. Sorry, this side. The trade engineer here today with us to share with us the technical aspect of trading. So it's very exciting that we are all gathered here today here. Please pardon me if I'm a bit as I mentioned just now, please pardon me if I'm a bit groggy because I'm currently not feeling very well in my gut. We will probably have it like we probably close this session after we actually evaluate these three stocks that has been actually suggested by Kel and Luke. So we are very excited to do this weekly stock picking for you guys. And first and foremost, we will be sharing about BRK slash B. What is BRK slash B? This one, for all investors out there, if you do not know it, right, must smack your backside already lah, huh? BRKB is by no other than Warren Buffett. So his company, is Berkshire Hathaway. B is a B class shares. That has no voting right. So, yeah. So I will not be touching on the fundamentals since we are all working on the Warren Buffett methodology. So I will just go directly to the chart if it's okay with you guys. Right. So let me just share my screen here. Oh yeah, of course. Definitely. Before I do share my screen, for those of you guys who actually just joined in with us, please note that this is not a financial advice. Whatever we are sharing here right now with you guys is actually, additional support for our community members. It is not meant to be a financial advice. Please do your own due diligence and execute a strategy that works for you guys. Yeah. We are not always right, so please, 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 take it with a pinch of salt, right? So, yep, we go. This is BRKB, Berkshire Hathaway. So it's very exciting, Berkshire Hathaway, right? You see, from the longest time, Berkshire Hathaway has been very, very positive since when? August 20, right? This is a daily chart now. So from 2020, Berkshire Hathaway has been on a spinning ride. Although here it consolidated for quite a bit, and then it went all the way up because there's a lot of uncertainties in the market. For those of you guys who don't really know what is Berkshire Hathaway is from Warren Buffett, and he is like his company is not a ETF, but then he is so diversified that I would personally want to think that he is somewhat a mini ETF in companies that he believes in, right? So you see, because it's so volatile during then, where people don't really know where's the market direction, and people want to be diversified. You see that Berkshire Hathaway actually had a good upward run, but what goes up must come down. And now what happened? Now we have retraced back, okay, to 291. It's a very big drop, on Friday itself we even see a gap down. Okay, this gap down can be something like like people taking profits or what's not, because on Friday itself the sentiments in the market is really, really very bad. And for the past week, right, you see that this 50, this SMA 50 is actually sloping downwards, of which is actually going to meet the blue line. Is it going to meet and to actually reversal in trend? This one we do not know, but there is a chance it might. So looking at this, right, where can it retrace to currently right now, although it's still bullish, if you look at 50 over 150, but you see here, lower highs, lower lows, and currently we are running a downwards trend. Let me just draw some trend line for you guys to actually show you guys some clarity. All right, so there is currently still more runway for the stock to run downwards. All right, and how low can it run? Let me see as well. Um, I think there might be a high chance that it might go somewhere to this particular point in time. All right, considering how how bearish it is right now. And let us confirm with Fibonacci as well to see what is the trend. Weekly stock. Let me just take a look. Okay, let me just pinpoint here to here. Okay, yep. So for the weekly, based on the weekly, right, it might cross over based on Fibonacci about 0.90, sorry, 79% thereabout. It might rebound here, but you see it's a very thick red candle bar. Should it not rebound around here, it might go further than that to maybe 1%, 100%. So as you see, this black line and this 100% and this one, right, is actually very, very snugly tied a point. So you want to actually, pay some attention to see whether it will rebound here or whether it will go further downwards, right? So this is my take on Berkshire Hathaway. What about you, the trade engineer?
All right. Yes, actually, my take is very similar to yours. Let me share my screen for the Berkshire Hathaway. And let me share my screen. All right. Okay. Let me zoom in a little bit. Yep. Okay. Yep. So I also have there, that 50 SMA, 200-day SMA, and as what Financial Missy has mentioned, like the 50 SMA, although the 50-day SMA, right, is still above the 200-day SMA, right, the gap is actually narrowing recently, right, so that is also a sign of concern, right. And you can see that I also draw this downtrend line here, right. So currently it is still in this downtrend, right. It hasn't broke past it, right. So there could still be more runway, right. The price could still fall down further, right. And you can see last Friday, right, it actually broke the first support, right. So this first support here about 297, 298, right. So it actually broke it very convincingly, right. So there could be further, it could be finding the next support now, right? And the next support, it could be pretty far down, right? Actually, the next support could be somewhere around here, right? About 292, right? If that doesn't hold, then it might go all the way back down somewhere here, right? Somewhere about 273, right? So that is something to take note of, right? It is, it could still be bearish, right? And one thing to take note here, right, is that the MACD itself, right, the MACD itself is also turning negative, right? It just started turning negative, right, with the bearish action the last few trading days, right? So we do have to look out to see whether this continues to be negative. If so, the bearish action could continue further, right? But on the RSI side, we do see there's some signs of it being oversold, right? So it could really hit that. It could really find the next support, do a slight bounce up, right? But we do not know for sure, right? But this is also a sign that some buyers might come in to support this stock, right? Yep. So that's my take of it. So as a moment, I advise all of you out there to actually don't do anything for this stock first, right? To watch and see and see how the price action turns out for the next week, like for Berkshire Hathaway. All right. And then over to you, back to Financial Missy.
Okay. So we have two more stocks that we are covered. We are going to be covering. The next one is actually by Luke, ASML. So exciting. Okay. So I've actually pinned it on the screen already. ASML is the next stock that we are going to be talking about. Right. So I do not know whether anybody have heard about ASML, but I personally have not heard about ASML. So let us check out what is ASML together. Okay. Let me share my screen. Okay, check. All right. So ASML, right itself, right? This company develops, produce, market, sells, and services advanced semiconductor equipment systems consisting of lithography, metrology, and inspection-related system for memory and chip logic, sorry, and logic chip makers. All right. So if I want to summarize this whole thing, right, what is it actually about, right? If you see here on Morningstar itself is actually under the technology sector. Industry-wise, it is semiconductor equipment and material. So here actually summarizes it very nicely for us. What is it about? It's a semiconductor equipment and materials industry. All right. Looking at the price to book ratio, we can know that it's a bit more of a over price right now. But let us look at the key ratio. Okay. Key ratio wise, debt to equity is actually very healthy. ROE for the past 12 months is 46. Is actually not bad. Right. So looking into the profitability of this particular company, revenue is good, it's increasing. Net income is also not too bad. Earning per share, every share that we are actually vested in, right? Actually, gives us 14.34. Actually, not bad lah, earning per share. So this is actually to note, yeah, this is actually a dividend giving company, which means to say if you guys are vested in it, any dividends will all be taxable, all right? Because this company is based in US and all US stocks are taxable in terms of dividends, right? Okay. Looking at other aspects of this particular company, it's actually quite strong. Yeah, I was looking at this, it's actually quite strong. Just a minute, let me look at the valuation, especially the cash flow wise. Okay. Yeah, this company is actually fundamentally quite strong. But let us look at the technical aspect. Technical aspect wise, right? When we look at if you're an investor wanting to invest in this company, do not, yeah, it has already turned bearish since earlier this year really, and it is actually on a downwards momentum trend. And let me, if I draw some lines to actually show you guys how bearish it would be. Let me just take a look. I would want to draw here. Okay, let's see whether it works. Yeah, there's somewhat there about. Okay, let me just draw here a bit more. Alright, and I just draw here. Somewhere there about. Currently, it's a very straightforward downtrend, yeah, because you see this one is a downward momentum trend. Here is actually a very bearish momentum of which is similar to Berkshire Hathaway on Friday itself. It gapped down and closed at the lower side. We had a momentary rebound on Monday. I have no idea, but you can see that this is two very bearish trend, and what goes down has to go up. That might be a momentary rebound, but this is something that we all cannot be certain. One thing for sure we can say is currently for this particular stock is on a downwards trend. The momentum that for downwards is so strong. All right. And how low can it fall? Let us take a look. I would very willing to actually draw a line here that this is actually a very possible resistance line that we can actually see where the stocks will actually, whether the stocks will actually rebound or fall further downwards. All right. So if you guys are short-term traders over there or swing traders, or scalp traders, you might want to see whether this is an opportunity for you guys. If I do draw a Fibonacci, let us take a look. Whoa, people, when I change this to a weekly chart, right, it's even more obvious that this is a double top and it's actually on a very straightforward downwards trend. So if I do draw a flip, do I draw here? Okay, never mind. Let me just delete this. Probably I want to actually draw. Never mind. I'll draw here then. Oh no, sorry, wrong one. Let me just draw a simple flip. Yeah, draw bigger. All right. So you see, for this one, actually cross 1.6. It crossed further down. Where can it end up to? So for this particular stock, if you want to draw a flip, probably 1.62. Also cross if we want to, probably not this one. Maybe let me see. What else can I draw? A 200 extension. 1.6 to 2.6. Uh, I would think that it has high potential to actually see whether it will test the rebound at about 200, sorry, about 2, and of which you see here, currently there's actually a very thick red bar. It might rebound, it might not rebound, I have no idea, but for now we can see that this is actually a very solid red bar, has higher potential to go downward. So investors out there, if you guys are looking at investing in this particular stock, there is currently no signs of reversal. That's right. If you want to enter, we wait until there's a green execution bar that we know for sure that is actually going upwards trend. This purple 50 SMA is actually on the downwards trend as well. Highly likely moving forward somewhere in the later part of the year, it might cross over. So this is something that we want to actually take note as well. All right. So over to you, trade engineer.
All right, thanks, Financial Missy. But I actually see some of the comments there in the chat, right? I think all of you have kind of got it, right? So yeah, it's still in the downward trend. We are still seeing lower highs in the prices, right, and lower lows, right, in the prices, right. Right, so that is a clear downtrend, right? That is a clear downtrend, right? So the downtrend is still continuing, right? And as what they say, the trend is your best friend, right? So if the trend is still pointing in the downward direction, don't fight the trend, right? Don't fight the trend. It's going to, it might continue to go downwards, right? So let me share my take on ASML as well, and let me share my screen. Okay, let me share. All right. Okay. Yep. So this ASML, right, on the daily chart, right. So right, very clearly you can see that it has risen a lot in the past, right, and double top pattern here, right, and then after that, ever since then, it has come down in a very smooth downtrend, right, very relatively smooth downtrend, right, with lower highs and lower lows, right, and this trend is still continuing, right, as of recent time, it is still continuing, right. So let's zoom in, right? Let's zoom in on the recent time, right? And you can see here I've drawn a downtrend, right? Downtrend line as well as the horizontal support line, right? So it is trading within this region, right? It is hasn't broken past this downtrend line, right? And it is, it looks like it's going to test this horizontal support level, right? It's very close to this horizontal support level, about 509.5, right? So that is the level you want to watch out for, right? To see what will happen, right? If it actually hits this level, right? Will it break down convincingly, right? If it breaks down convincingly, right, that you could be finding the next support, which could be some way down, right? It could be some way down, right? This level used to be the support very long time ago, right? Back in 2021, right? It actually tested this level, right? If it actually breaks down further, right, we could be seeing even lower support levels, right? It could be somewhere around here, right? That could be a possibility, right? About 500. But if that doesn't hold as well, then it could drop down even further, right? And that it could be dropping down quite low, right? So there's something you might want to take note of, right? But of course, right, on the flip side of things, right, if this remains convincingly supported, it might make a rebound back to this downtrend line and retest this line as the resistance level, right? So we do want to watch out and see what will happen, right? Additionally, we also can see here there's a horizontal resistance level, right, around this about 583, right, 583 US dollars, right. So that is something you want to take note of. If this stock breaks that downtrend line, and heads for further upside, right? So that is something you might want to take note of. Yeah, but as we've know, a lot of the stocks we have seen so far, we have seen that the MACD, right, has turned slightly negative as well for this. So that's a sign of bearishness, right? So do keep an eye out and see, how that would change, or how that pan out, right, in the coming week, right? All right, and now let's go to our last stock pick, right? And I'll hand the time back to Financial Missy, right, for a take on SCHW.
Right. So last but not least, before I go for my rest because my stomach is really killing me. Um the last one that we are going to review is SCHW. I have no idea whether anybody heard about this stock before, but this particular company actually made the headlines back in 2020. So when I was looking at this particular company, I was like, SCHW doesn't sound familiar. I went to Google and it's called Charles Schwab. So let me just share my screen now. Why did it make the headlines in 2020? Right. Let me just share. Okay, so wait, revise it. Okay, so why? Because I remember that in 2020 something happened. So this particular company, right, actually, completed a 22 billion all stock acquisition of one of its major competitors, TD and Ameritrade, in 2020. Alright, so yeah, exactly like what Kel said. Think of Swift is the brokerage company that I'm personally using, and it actually acquired my brokerage. So I was a bit concerned in 2020. That's why I was like, oh, Charles Schwab sounds so familiar. Right. So for the rest of you guys who doesn't really know what is Charles Schwab, it provides wealth management, security brokerage, banking, asset management, custody, and financial advisory service. Right. So if you go into Morningstar itself, you look at the overview, it's under the sector of financial service industry, while it's under capital market. Alright. In terms of key ratio, the ROE is not the best, but the debt to equity ratio is very good. So I see that you guys out there, most of you guys are really investors. Looking at fundamentally very strong company, which I'm so proud of you guys. Why? Because like what Warren Buffett actually always do is to invest in companies that we know will definitely make money for us and companies that are profitable. So looking at this, the revenue is increasing. We don't see any operating income and etc. Why is that so? It's something that we want to find out. Um, Net income also increasing year on year, and dividend wise, it's also increased. Sorry, we don't really want to look at dividends because it's all taxable. Earning per share is not the best, 2.83 for every stock that we earn. Right. Free cash flow wise in 2021 actually lost a lot of money. In fact, they started losing money since 2020. Um, don't forget that this is just black and white numbers. We want to attribute it back to the economy to see what is exactly going on during then. And of course, in 2020, 2021, I believe that everyone will have actually known what happened then. All right. Moving downwards, let us look at the others aspect. Growth wise, pretty decent. Yeah, they don't have any much operating income. This is interesting, right? But debt wise is very, very healthy all along. Let us see, back to this company. So it provides wealth management, banking, asset management, custody, financial advisory. It provides in two segments, investor services and advisory services. So you want to see what exactly it does. Custodial trading, probably not much of a management. Uh, okay, honestly, I have no idea why it doesn't have much of a um operating income, etc. This is something that I will go and find out, and I will actually, have a follow-up session with whoever's interested in knowing why is there no operating income. So I don't want to waste your time as well. So let me just go through the other aspects of fundamental analysis to look at this particular stock. Right. Cash flow. Okay, there's actually a big dip here in operation. Uh, Investing also lost. That means they actually lend out money, acquisition, purchase of investments. Okay, they've been investing more. Okay, fundamentally wise, it's actually not too bad. We look at the stock itself. Price action wise, very obvious. Since 2022 April, it's actually on a very straightforward downwards trend. Um, very, very bearish. Yeah, I would say that this is actually a very bearish chart. How low it can go to for this particular candlestick wise, it is actually not a it's actually a bearish candlestick at which there is actually quite a strong support here. We want to see actually we have a momentary rebound or not. Highly likely, my prediction is it might not have a strong rebound. Even if there is, there's high potential to go downwards because the momentum, the downwards momentum is actually pretty strong as well. Um, if I if I were to predict how low can it drop, let's see, or can drop to very, very low. This particular stock, the momentum is really very, um, yeah, very weak. And you see that for the past since 2020, we actually had a very bull run for 2 years already. So, I wouldn't be surprised that it goes back all the way to 2018 range about here. It might retrace about here. What I can say is we wait and see. If we do look at Fibonacci to do a bit more representation wise, let me just draw a flip. If you were to draw a Fibonacci retracement, yeah, currently we are sitting at here. It has potential to drop further as well. To how much? Let me take a look. 1.62, maybe about maybe about here. We will see. We want to see whether there's a rebound. If about this particular point in time there isn't a rebound, there's higher chance that it will go even lower. All right. So yeah, that's all that I got for you guys for SCHW. Let's see what the trade engineer says about technical analysis.
All right, thanks, Financial Missy. Right, so let me offer my take for SCHW as well. Yep, and let me share my screen once again. And it's coming up. All right, yes. So here's my my chart, right? The daily chart for SCHW, right? So few things to point out here, right? First of all, the moving averages, right? I've put in the 50-day moving average and the 200-day moving average, right? So this is the 50-day, right? This dark purple line, the 50 SMA, right? And this lighter purple line is the 200-day moving average, right? So you can see, in recent times it actually crossed, right? And now the 50-day SMA is less than the 200-day SMA, right? So that is another sign of bearishness, and it has, the gap has actually increased in recent times, right? So, so the bearish action might continue, right? At least in the mid to long term, right? That's one of the things I like to take note of. And let me just hide this. Yep. Okay. So so over here, right? Other things that I take note of is that this particular stock is still trading below this downtrend line, right? Like all the other stocks we've gone through so far today, right? And you can see that this one is no different, right? It is still below this downtrend line, right? So the downtrend could still persist, right? But as what Financial Missy has mentioned, it is testing this immediate support level now, right? The immediate support level at about $61 dollars, right? It used to be tested in the past down here, and it was the resistance down here as well. Right? So this is a very key level to watch out for, right? And we want to see whether this level can hold convincingly as as what we have mentioned for other stocks as well, right? I think most of the stocks are nearing that support level, that horizontal support level, right? And but we're not too sure how strong this support will be, right? It is approaching level now, right? So we do have to keep a close eye for it, right? But if this level fails, right, if this level fails and it there's more bearish action, the price goes down further, right? It could drop a fair bit, like it could drop a fair bit, like you could be looking somewhere around here, right? And that is, wow, that's about $50, right? $51, right? So that is a pretty low price, right? Yep. So do be prepared. Like the it might make a bounce up, from this support line and hit, retest this downtrend line again, right? But we won't know for sure. If it doesn't remain convincing support down here for this horizontal support, it might retest, another support level that is, way down here at $50, right? Yep. But if on the other flip side things, like if somehow it turns bullish, right, and it bounces up, breaks past this downtrend line, and we could be looking at this resistance line, right? You can see that this resistance was tested here one time, right, and here a second time, right? And this was about $71, right? So that is the line, right? The resistance line to watch out for if this stock moves up for the upside, right? But as of the moment, I will advise, as with all other stocks, to watch and see how it turns out next week, right? Because it really looks like the bearish momentum might still continue for a while longer, right? And we won't be very sure whether this support will actually hold, right? So do be mindful and do stay on sidelines for now. Is what I would suggest, right? And do be safe, right? Do be safe, either in trading or investing, right? Oh yeah, and one more thing to highlight for this stock down here is the MACD, right? Like all the other stocks we mentioned, this MACD is also turning negative recently, right? So there's another sign of bearishness for this stock, right? But of course, you're thinking of shorting, right? You're thinking of shorting. Do wait for the confirmation as well, right? As of now, don't know whether this could actually hold. This support could actually hold, right? So we do have to keep an eye out for this support first, right? If there's a confirmation that this price actually breaks the below this horizontal support very convincingly, right? Then there could be a short, at shorting, right? But do be very mindful that it also, on the RSI side, it also is approaching the oversold region, right? So not too sure, whether how much room is there, right? It really could go down to 51, right? Or if not, it could actually find somewhere, some other support level, right? So we do have to watch out and see what will happen in the next week, right? And before we end off, for today, right? Just like to share this, summary or a reminder slide, right? Right. So today, it's our second time doing this sharing, right? Our live sharing for the stocks that you have suggested, right? And if you will like our sharing for today, right? Don't forget to click that like or love button, right? And also, consider clicking that share button, right? To share this video to other friends whom would benefit from our sharing today. Right, and we do have our social media channels. Like for those of you who are joining us for the very first time, right, you can consider following us. Right, I have my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok channel. Right, and you can follow Financial Missy on her Facebook, Instagram accounts as well. Right, and if you have any further questions, any further comments, right, do leave it in the comments box below. Right, or if at any point in time you have a stock that you'd like us to talk about in our next sharing, right? You can also let us know, right? And we can also feature it in the next week sharing, right? And yep, as you already, yeah, we hold this every Sunday, right, at 4 p.m., right? So we shall see you again, right, next Sunday. And but before we end off the session, right, like to hand the time back to Financial Missy for any last words, right, before we end the session.
Yeah, actually, I think I was also thinking, right, that the trade and would you like to give our audience, our community, a bit of a bonus for today? Will you be interested?
Sure, of
Yeah,
course.
would our community be interested? If you guys are interested, please type in the chat below. Say yes, you get of a bonus. And what is the bonus? Is Would you want to actually find out what is our current trade strategy or investment strategy in the market? If you guys want to have this bonus, type yes. If nobody wants this bonus, then I'm going to rest already. So type yes if you want to have this bonus and you want to hear from you, right? Currently I'm looking at the chat. I only saw ZQ Tiang says I will avoid financial and semicon for now. And to buy energy ETF and short the index. Okay. So we only have two out of those who are online who wants to actually know this additional bonuses. Okay. So if you want this additional bonus, do type in the chat yes and do like our sharing today. All right. Oh, Luke says yes also. Okay, thank you. Right. Let me just hide this. Okay. First and foremost, right, for me myself, what is my current strategy in the market right now? Because when the whole market is actually very volatile and the general trend of the market is on the downward trend. And as I always said that don't catch the falling knives because when the stock market goes down, the momentum is so bearish, it can go down and down and down and down. The question is how much of a financial capital do you have to catch every falling knife to do dollar cost averaging? Is dollar cost averaging better, or is it better if you actually catch the reversal in trend when the market comes? Alright, there is no right and wrong answer. That is for your own personal strategy on how you execute it. But for me myself, I would advocate that don't catch a flipping knife. Dollar cost averaging is good, but not in this particular point in time because while the market is obviously very bearish, wait for a reversal in trend. Currently, what am I actually doing now? My personal strategy right now, number one, I'm keeping a lot of cash. In fact, I'm keeping about 75% cash because why? That is really a lot of downside momentum, and I want to actually take opportunity when there's a reversal in trend. Alright, is the reversal in trend coming anytime soon? Unlikely. Not that market is actually showing us any signs and symptoms. Sorry, very nursing-ish. Any signs and indicators of reversal in trend currently right now? No, that isn't. It's very very bearish. That's why I'm actually keeping cash. Mansing says depends on how deep your pocket is. Yes, for the dollar cost averaging, you really need to know how deep your pocket is to catch the falling knife. Exactly. Um, Apart from that, if you are having a bit of a finger itchiness, like a couple of days ago, my hands a bit itchy, I've not been playing the market for such a long time because as an investor, I don't like to play against trend. Especially in I don't like to be a very active I mean it's supposed to be a passive income. I don't want to actually, monitoring the market every single night and affecting my daily sleep and stuff like that. I want to actually have fun in the market. So I'm actually a long-term investor. But right now, if you're feeling a bit of itchiness, you actually want to actually focus more on the indexes, like what ZQ Chang says, more on the indexes rather than individual companies, right? Looking at the indexes itself, it helps you to diversify your portfolio, helps you to reduce your potential losses as well. All right. Of course, it also depends on the number of lots that you buy and the number of shares that you buy. But for me myself, I'm actually looking more on the index rather than individual companies because it's very very bearish. That's number two, and number three is look at trend. If it's a downward trend, if it's a very strong downward trend of which there's a very clear resistance line, yeah, very clear support line, you can consider doing a swing trade downwards. All right, can consider. Um, do I do it? Not often, and unless I'm really I got time and I'm very confident that yes, this particular sector, this particular period in time, the momentum is so strong it will go downwards. Yes, I might do a bearish trade, but a bearish trade wise, I will not do it as a long term, probably a couple of days maximum because it's very volatile and I don't want to actually take additional risk. So that's also one. And if there's a consolidation, that's where you want to actually um see whether there's actually very strong support and resistance and think about doing a vertical, right? Do I do that often? No, I don't. right? Currently, this is actually my perspective on how I'm actually navigating the market at this particular point in time. Don't take necessary unnecessary risks because it's so volatile. You really need to do your risk management very, very well and have sufficient capital when the market reverse. That's where you actually see gold. Right. So that's my personal point of view. What about you, the trade engineer?
All right, thanks, Financial Missy. Right, so okay, for mine, right, so because I'm doing more on the trading aspect, right, so I've other things to like share with all of you, right. So I think first of all, for those of you who are trading US stocks or investing US stocks, right, of course, we have to be we have to actually look at the big picture, right. We do have to consider that first of all you have to look at the index itself, right? The index itself is giving that whole big picture of how the whole US economy is doing, right? So if the US economy is not doing well, right, um and it is actually falling, right, or the indexes are actually falling by 800 points a day, right, chances are about majority of the stocks will also be falling, right, on that very same day, right. So oh, someone singing in the background. No one's singing, but yeah, but so that's something I like to make sure advise all of you, right? It is to really to really look at the big picture first, right? To always consider how is the whole U.S. economy doing, right? Is there any news in the market, right? And from there you look at your individual stocks, right? For your individual stocks as well, you also want to look at the big picture, right? You always want to look at the the big trend, right? You can zoom it out to a monthly chart, a weekly chart, to see what is the overall picture, right? Before you zoom in further to your daily chart or your hourly chart, right? So the time frame also matters, right? We do also want to see the big picture before going down to the smaller picture, right? And at at this juncture, right, you might see that a lot of the stocks like have fallen substantially, right? I think most of the stocks that we know of, like Tesla, Alibaba, all these stocks have fallen from their all-time highs, right? And they're testing uncharted territory in recent times, right? So it might be very enticing to buy, right? This deep, but as what we have mentioned time and again, right? That it you don't want to catch a falling knife, right? And low can actually get lower, right? So we do also want to play the trend, right? We also want to see that confirmation sign. So don't let the emotions get the better of you, right? Do just look at the chart, if you're trading on a technical basis, do look at the chart on with all the different indicators, like taking an impartial view, and only enter by either a long or short trade when you see that confirmation, right? When you see that there's a confirmation, right, multiple confirmation signs for you to enter a long or short trade, right, before you actually consider making that trade, right? And if you actually make that trade, right, if you actually make a trade, because for traders, we can go either on the long side of things or the short side of things, right? So we can capture whether it's going downward. We can also make some profits from there. But as with all trading strategies, right, we do have to set a cut loss, right? Because if you don't set a cut loss, right, for trading, right, you could end up with a high amount of losses, right, that you cannot cover back, right? And you don't want to have one big bad loss, right, that basically wipe out all your other profits for the past month, the past year, right? So I think that is something very important to consider if you are trading, right? To set a cut loss in place, and don't be afraid to cut loss, right? If you cut loss, you lose some money here, but you can free up that money. You can prevent yourself from losing further, and you can actually use that money to actually um, trade another stock, and recover back that amount of money, right? So that is something that you need to have the discipline for, right? If you're trading, so that you can be consistently profitable, right? And I think I've mentioned this before as well. Whenever you're trading, you need to consider your risk benefit ratio, right? And always, at this juncture, I think it's more important than not to only go into the ones that have a higher benefit to risk ratio, right? Those that offers you a higher potential benefit and a lower potential risk, right? Because at this juncture, the market is very very volatile. You probably want to limit yourself to those very good ones that has the most confirmative signs and the highest potential to win, right? So that is something I hope all of you have will glean from it, right? And do stay safe in this volatile time, and don't let your emotions get the better of you, right? Yeah, that's my advice for all of you for today.
All right. So if you guys have no further questions or if there's nothing else that you guys want to know about us, we will probably end this session right now. All right. So if you guys have any questions or anything, this is the last opportunity for you guys to type in the chat. Yeah, if otherwise we will probably see you next week. When my gut is my stomach is feeling much better, and we can have a more exciting discussion conversation going on next week as well. If otherwise anytime you guys have any questions or you want to approach us directly, our DMs, you can just DM us directly as well. We are very friendly people who will actually reply to your DMs as well. So this is here. So this is the trade engineer here with us. You can follow him in his page. Next week for the stock sharing, stock picking session will be conducted on his page itself, of which I will share it on mine as well. So do follow him as well. Yep, as well. And if there's no questions, I'm going to end it here right now. And it's been a pleasure being with you guys on a Sunday afternoon. It's 5:02, overrun by 2 minutes or so. But it's awesome. So I really enjoyed myself, and I hope that this session is beneficial for you guys out there as well. So without further ado, thank you so much, guys. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good Sunday. Bye.